Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Edwin Rutsch, and this is Dialogues on How to Build a Culture of Empathy. And I'm so excited to be talking with Diana Castle.
I'm so excited to be with you. It's because what you're doing is so profound. I mean, you really are building a circle of empathy in the world. Just you're taking so much action.
You know, I just came across your work because there was an interview you did with the Deepak Chopra well, and they interviewed you about your work in empathy and acting, and there was your website, theimaginedlife.com, and it's about acting as the art of empathic imagination. It says, which is a creative philosophy and practical application of your natural empathic imagination to the art of acting. And I said, I have to contact this person. So I'm really glad to, connect with you on this and kind of hear about yourself and, how you got started with it.
When I created The Imagined Life, empathy obviously has been a topic many people have spoken about for a long time, but I think it's more in the consciousness today than ever. A little bit of my background: I'm the daughter of a man who survived the Holocaust, and I was raised in the Deep South. So the combination of European parents in the Deep South in the 60s was a real pressure cooker of feeling disconnected, and as a child yearning so much for connection. But I'm so grateful. I mean, I have such a sense of gratitude to my parents for introducing me to the arts. And and that was the playground where I could find community and experience catharsis and collaboration, and people of all different backgrounds were coming together around a single mission to share a story and to, as Shakespeare said, hold the mirror up to nature.
It's like, if I'm just, what I'm hearing here is that you grew up in the Deep South and you're kind of feeling disconnected from the society, and that the arts was kind of this place where you could find that sense of connection and community then.
And not only community, yes, not only community among the artists who were behind the mission to share a story with a group of people, but the greater community of the group of people who walk in and we all laugh together and we all cry together. So the greater community called an audience. So it was an incredibly euphoric feeling to make that empathetic connection. And I love the arts because that's where I think it's a mini world peace. And I think of course a lot of actors yearn for applause and they yearn for validation and approval, and a lot of the times as a young person that's where the fuel comes from. But I think on the deeper level, who doesn't want to feel that connection with another person? I mean, who doesn't want to feel understood? Because you can transcend and transform through the arts, and I think that's where my interest in empathy began, under the pressure and challenge of disconnection, and through the gravity of pressure, challenge, obstacle, conflict, my real liftoff happened. I don't know that I would have found such a deep empathic connection if I hadn't had such pressure. I mean, I think in a way, pressure and challenge and obstacle, these conflicts that we're experiencing between people, actually offer a deeper opportunity for connection.
Yeah, and well, I'm kind of wondering, where did the empathy part came in? You kind of sounds like you had like an experiential experience of the empathy, but when did you say, hey, this is what empathy is, this is how it works, I'm going to really focus my whole energies on developing, and exploring this empathy?
When I first began, I was just enjoying storytelling and enjoying the experience of being part of a troupe of people who were sharing stories. And then I started teaching actors. And through a series of events, more and more people started coming to me. And I found out, oh my gosh, I guess I'm teaching this thing called acting, which I wasn't really interested in. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and literally, in my mind, thought, The Imagined Life, Acting as the Art of the Empathetic Imagination. I wrote it down, and the next day that's what I started calling it. And that was a profound experience, you know, just recognizing that what I was doing was not really teaching acting, but teaching the heart in the art of acting, which is empathy. An actor is uniquely asked on a daily basis to accept and agree to alternative interpretations of life. That's what they do, holding the mirror up to nature and showing virtue her own feature and scorn her own image. So this idea of Shakespeare's advice to the players and asking us to hold the mirror up, the mirror neurons up, and really speak to the potential in others. And I deeply believe that when we see the potential in others, we realize our own potential. The metaphor that has been a metaphor for my life and my work is Michelangelo's David. And the reason for that is there's a guy who wrote a book called The Art Spirit, Robert Henri, and he says the whole value of art rests in the artist's ability to see well into what is before him. So, if you can speak to the potential in someone else, to see well, to see the David through all the marble,
mm-hmm.
then you become a Michelangelo. You become an artist of life. When I make a connection to the David in the marble, when I really make that connection and chip away at the marble that stands between me and you, I make a connection not just to your virtuous self or my virtuous self, but also to my scornful self. So we become more empathetic or compassionate with ourselves when we see that I don't need to see myself in you. My job is really to see you in me. And if I can do that, if I can find my way to seeing your scornful self, your virtuous self, and come into communion with that, I'm going to have more compassion, not just for the other, but also for my own scornful self, because I'm not alone in it.
Yeah, so it's really kind of being a mirror to someone else in that sense. It's like allowing yourself to be a mirror, and it kind of being a mirror to others, you kind of see yourself.
And when we bow to the mirror bows back. So there's this wonderful guy named V.S. Ramachandran, have you had the conversation with him yet?
Not yet. He's on my list, definitely.
It's incredible what he's talking about. Of course, Marco Iacoboni, who you've interviewed, who's extraordinary, obviously, a hero. But this idea that phantom, if I lose my arm, and then I sit across from you and it's my right arm, and I'm having phantom limb pain, and then somebody comes and massages your left arm, I get relief. So this idea that it seems like we're separate, but the minute I lose my skin, I am you and you are me. The only thing that separates us is that.
Yeah, that's when I talked to Marco. That's what he was saying. I asked, I'm looking at how do we build a culture of empathy? How do we raise the value of empathy in society and make it really a foundational cultural value? And for him, it was just that realization that you're talking about, how mirror neurons work, and that we are not separate in that sense. That as I'm waving my hand, that your mirror neurons, are firing and feeling that as well. So in a sense, the air and the space is only almost like a synapse between us, and so we are not disconnected. And to have that realization, he thought was like one of the most profound realizations for fostering empathy.
This idea of saying hello myself, or hello my brother, or hello my sister, hello myself. I'm not meeting like an actor doesn't meet a part on the page, they're meeting a part of themselves. This whole idea that I'm going to play a part, no, Atticus Finch and To Kill a Mockingbird, you never really know a human being until you walk a mile in their shoes. But walking a mile in another person's shoes doesn't mean that you give them back. It means that I'm going to walk a mile in your shoes, and I think that what we find out is that those shoes exist in our own closet. The importance of exchanging interpretive frameworks nowadays, of course, can't be underestimated. And I think that the culture of empathy begins with a willingness. I think that's the greatest challenge that we have today. It's not so much whether we can empathize, but it's whether we're willing to. It's a desire for connection, a desire to be that intimate, a desire to open our hearts to what another person might be thinking and feeling. And there's this tribe that I talk about a lot with my students with regard to willingness. This tribe, the Moken tribe in Bali, in Southeast Asia, the gypsies in the Moken tribe, they have a story that had been passed down for generations, that when the cicadas stop singing and the water level gets to a certain point, that the big wave is coming. And this, they've survived for generations because of that story being passed down, the story of how I survived. And they go to a particular place, top of a hill with a tree. They know that tree, and that will ensure their survival. Well, on the day of the tsunami in Bali, the leader of the gypsies, the Moken tribe, recognized the cicadas had stopped singing and that the water level had risen. And he started running up and down the beach. The big wave is coming, the big wave is coming. And when he was interviewed by 60 Minutes, he was asked, he was down by the water, he was down in the water. Did you not tell the fishermen? Did you not, because the fishermen perished and your tribe survived, did you not share this story with the fishermen that the big wave is coming? And he said, yes, but the fishermen can only see the fish. And I think if we're not willing to exchange interpretive frameworks and we're only willing to see the fish, we're going to perish. If we don't share our stories now more than ever, if we keep holding on to our fish, if we keep holding on to our map of the world, and we're standing in a completely different culture, we can perish.
Engaging with all these different cultures was really what I think really opened up my empathy. As you had, for you it was the arts, for me it was the travel, I believe.
In a way, I think of storytelling as traveling to other countries, traveling to the imagination, or this nation of images, alternative perspectives, alternative interpretive frameworks. When you read a novel that's fictional, you get to time travel, you get to travel to other perspectives. When you read a script, when you read a screenplay or a play, and I don't think there's anything more important than cultural exchange.
So it's really like that holding tight, holding ourselves tight, and it's really how do we loosen up to start feeling each other's experience. And it seems that then acting is the way of doing it, one way to kind of engage in that, is start taking on these roles, start trying this out. And that's kind of like opening us up then, letting go of that tightness.
Completely. And also, for people who are more timid about it, just going to see a movie.
The one thing I did want to kind of bring in, in terms of acting, I've done some conflict resolution work, and in this process you have two disputants and then two mediators. And in the training, everyone takes on practicing the different roles. So you actually do some, you become a disputant, you're given a script, and then you play from that script, like to be the disputant. And I was just so amazed how everyone was able to do that. There was no one who could not step into the shoes of this person and amazingly act out the conflict in relation to someone else.
A non-actor has this willingness to walk in and say, I'm in a dispute with you, but I'm willing because I want this dispute to end. On some level, conflict resolution begins with a desire to end the conflict.
Your interview with the Deepak Chopra well, you talked with the people that were interviewing you about their intention.
Yeah.
You're saying, what is your intention? What is it? And you kept coming back to kind of tapping into their intention.
Well, that's half of the daily practice that I teach the actors. The first half is what I call the I must. So the I must work. That's in Rilke's first letter. He's advising a young writer, and in that first letter, he writes that you must ask yourself in the stillest hour of your night, must I write? Now he was advising a young poet. And if the answer comes back a resounding yes, then order your life according to that necessity. So I think an actor asks that question every day. Must I contribute to the empathetic conversation through storytelling? Anything in life requires, I think, a deep-rooted mission that goes beyond one's own self-interest. And the mission to contribute to the experience of empathy, which happens every time an audience comes into the theater, every time an audience comes in to watch a movie. Every day, 20 minutes a day, I ask the actor to sit down and just get in touch with their real I must. I don't dictate what the I must is. What is your I must as a storyteller? If you've chosen to be a storyteller in the world, what is the I must? So there's two parts to the work that I do with actors. The I must work, awakening to the mission of a storyteller that goes beyond, the challenges that actors are faced with. And I think that the challenges that actors are faced with are very similar to the challenges that we're all faced with. An actor doesn't get to pick what they're going to empathize with. And so they are asked to be that mother on Monday and a murderer on Tuesday. So that can open up a whole feeling of, well, I want to be that part, but I don't want to be that part.
I'm hearing two things there. One is if we're feeling the constriction, which we have in our lives, that it's through taking on all the roles, opening ourselves to taking on all the roles of life, all the positions, that each of those kind of opens up that visceral constriction that we might feel in life. And that being said, that could be for everyone trying to do that. But that art in general, that the artists, it's kind of their role in society to do that and to contribute that opening to all of society, and they have a big role to play in building a culture of empathy in that sense.
As opposed to a culture of narcissism. So the actor deals with not getting to pick their story, not getting to pick their empathetic embrace. So every story teaches an actor how to become more empathic. Every part that comes an actor's way teaches them, oh, this is a part of me. So that's one thing. So the actor doesn't get to pick their empathic story. A lot of people walk through life feeling as though they didn't get to pick their story. Then another challenge that an actor deals with is, of course, taking the written word and making it spoken. There's a guy named Hayakawa. He wrote a great book, Language in Thought and Action. And he says when you're given new words, you're given the opportunity to be new in the world. When we're given a script and we're giving words that have been put together in ways we wouldn't normally speak, that opens up a new perception. But going back to in what way it's applicable for non-actors is this vocabulary that we've been given versus education, cultural exchange, learning new languages. This gives us an opportunity to broaden not only words but worlds. Then the last challenge that actors deal with, that I think people deal with too, goes back to this: they share intimately in front of people or a camera. And so an actor, it's a very courageous thing that an actor does. By empathizing with the part and opening their heart to the part, they facilitate the empathy of the audience. I mean, there's a difference between kind of a persona performer and a empathetic transformer. These transformative actors, where I go and see them in a movie and I don't see them. I experience myself through them, a possible self. That's what they facilitate, a possible self, because they accepted it as a possibility for themselves. That's such an amazing thing.
But there's really, can we make the whole society more empathic? It really becomes a core part of our culture, and how do we go about doing that? It's like, it seems like we need really an empathy movement. I mean, that's what I'm looking at. How do we create this empathy movement to really, you know, get people behind that and to really transform society?
I think on one of the videos where you had, maybe it was even the Palestinians and Israelis that were sitting down to speak, and there was a little plaque, and on the plaque it said, you know, the story begins at home. I'm very inspired by you and what you're doing, and I think that's the question, Edwin. Is, you know, how do we do that? How do we facilitate? I think it starts life to life, heart to heart, one person at a time. There are many movements, I think, around empathy. A lot of movements, but it's all about how do we come together. I do my best on a daily basis, one person, one heart, one life, one student at a time. And I just think it all begins with engagement, one person at a time.
You see, it sent a list of, you know, comments that students had written about your work, and it was like, you know, someone talks about, well, my folks told me to stand in other people's shoes, but it was through this acting that I actually was able to do it. So I actually learned how to do it. Through the Imagine Life, I learned the term empathic sensitivity, and you talked about your sensitivity growing up, you know, being a kind of a highly sensitive person, and they say turn it into strength, so that sensitivity is not something to be afraid of, but is actually a source of energy and strength.
It's really extraordinary what a story can do. In both cases, we're just in our respective areas, you know, where we're standing. I really believe, you know, where you and I are standing, that's where it begins.
We've also done like imaginative empathy, where we're working on a user guide. So everyone became the user guide. I am the user guide. And what are you experiencing now? I said, well, as a user guide, I feel very lonely. Nobody's paying attention to me. And, you know, I really want some attention. I want people to, you know, do something with me.
What you just said is so important about the first step with empathy is the acceptance of the I am, isn't it? I mean, it does have to be I am.
Oh, I am the thing. I am the user guide. That's what you're meaning by I am. I am you. I am.
I am. Because if it's he, then the brain says that experience is outside of us.
Oh, uh-huh.
But the I am is the being place. So the right brain kicks in, imagination kicks in, empathy kicks in, mirror neurons kick in. I am. Because empathy can be such a conceptual word. It's a concept. And we have to turn the concept into something living and breathing and flesh.
You say, okay, you're wanting to build a culture of empathy. What does that mean to you? And
I always say, what does that look like to you?
Oh, what does that look like? Okay.
What does that look like to you? What does that sound like to you? What does that smell like to you? What does that taste like to you? Saying, you know, I really want to feel a connection with another human being, and I'm going to put myself in their shoes in all 5 senses. I'm so appreciative. My God, I mean, I really could. I really am blown away by, you know, the feeling that you're talking about. I have too. This sense of, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. And we're doing it. We're doing it. Every time I know for me, every time I willingly challenge my own, you know, and open my heart and open my spirit and open my life up to another human being, I feel transformed by it. Empathy is transformational. I know that there's this sort of idea that in cognitive and emotional, particularly emotional empathy, there's this as if, but I don't think so. I think it's as one.
Yeah.
I think it's, I say, I accept the I am. I accept the fear, your fear, as my own. And in accepting your fear as a possibility for me, not only do I empathize myself, empathize with you and experience connection, but I liberate myself from my own fears as well. And that, I believe, is why emotional empathy creates self-empathy. Like,
so instead of like, is that whole, I kind of do this idea that you start with yourself, and a lot of the mindfulness is, you got to get into yourself, but I've thought that it's really about seeing myself and others is maybe the starting point, or see others in myself.
That's right.
That's like really the first step of that empathy. Yay. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Because when we say, I see you in me, you're a mirror reflection of me. Hello, myself. Oh my gosh. Hello, myself. That's when we go, oh, wow, I see more deeply into myself. I widen my empathetic embrace. My main, I must in life is the message of, through engagement with others. It is through engagement with others and seeing others in us. The function of art has always been to see more deeply into life. I don't look at the bowl of fruit on the table the same way after I see a Cezanne painting. I don't bring my own bowl of fruit from my kitchen in Los Angeles to the Cezanne. Cezanne teaches me how to see. So art teaches us how to see. Empathy, which is art, teaches us how to see more deeply into our own lives. So I would say imagined life first, expands our empathetic embrace. Empathetic embrace expands compassionate action, not only for others but for ourselves.